Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Got court this morning. Yay. Breaking the rain, which is nice. Get to ramble while I amble. Saw a video yesterday. Somebody linked it in my Discord. Freeman has found my kryptonite. He makes long, rambly videos that are like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. And I have neither the time nor the inclination to watch them. Just to tell Freeman how wrong he is. So he's been free from my scrutiny for quite a while. However, somebody else took this video. It's about 20 minutes long. It was posted up on Facebook. I don't have a link for it. And I apologize. I saw it yesterday. And thinking, what can I talk about today? And I remembered there was something in the video. I only watched about 10 minutes of it because it got really boring really fast. The contention that the ginger hero was making was that the city government is unnecessary because the county can do all the same things that the city can. And that's just classic Freeman, doesn't understand what the fuck he's talking about. But let me walk you through this, and let me see if you come to the same conclusions that Freeman does. What if the United States dissolved all of the state governments, and by extension, all the county governments, and all the city governments? So we were left with just the federal government. Just the federal government. That would be the most efficient, wouldn't you agree? James would, obviously, because, we're getting rid of all those unnecessary lower layers of government. The federal government can provide police. The federal government can, tax. The federal government can determine boundaries. The federal government can do all the things that the lower governments could do. All we have to do is just dissolve those lower governments and give the federal government the power to do it. Then we have one localized government, no waste, right? Now, if you're in California, in one of the cities in California, the big cities, or if you're in New York or the East Coast in one of the big cities out there, you're probably thinking, yeah, why not? Why not? What possible harm could there be? Now, if you're in Texas or another small state that has completely different politics and a completely different outlook on how society should be run, you're thinking, fuck them liberal elites, them coastal liberal elites. And you want to have your own state. Why? Why do you want that? Well, your own state is going to be more responsive to your desires than the federal government. If you're in a state of, 10 million people, small state, your voice is going to be 1/10,000,000th of the voices in that state, as opposed to being 370 millionth in the federal system. So it's going to be more responsive to you. It's going to reflect the needs of that area more. If you're in a coal mining state, your state is going to be much less restrictive on coal mining than a state like California or New York. And maybe you need coal mining to make your living. So the state government is going to be much more responsive to your needs and to the needs of that area than the federal government is. The federal government's going to be spending most of its money on on the places where people vote, right? So all the money is going to be spent in California and New York. So that's okay. Is that a good point? Have I made a good point? Well, then the same thing works when you get down into the state. A county government is going to be more responsive to your needs than the state government. And finally, at the very bottom end, a city government is going to be much more responsive to the inhabitants of that city than a county would. A county is going to have to take into account, I mean, generally speaking, there are some counties that are entirely one city or almost entirely one city. And so there, your mileage may vary, but generally speaking, you're going to have a mixture of urban and rural areas in a county. And those different areas are going to have different needs, and they're going to require different levels of policing, and they're gonna look different. Like if you go out into some parts of just Sacramento County, it's an entirely different environment. If you go from Midtown Sacramento to Rio Linda, it's a completely different environment with completely different appearances, completely different needs. We're gonna go this way. Completely different look. Houses are gonna be different. The streets and sidewalks are gonna look different. It's just a different place with different needs. And so the benefit, if you're in a county, the benefit of forming a city, and there are benefits, is number one, you get to capture local tax dollars and keep them local. Your tax dollars aren't going to go to the state, or at least not all of them are. There are going to be some tax dollars that are captured by the city to do the good works that the city wants to do. Street signs, street lights, waste disposal services, school districts, maybe wherever you are, who knows, sewer and utilities. At least in California, there's a lot of places when you get outside of cities where people are on well water and septic tanks and propane tanks. I'm sure that's the same in a lot of other states too. And, city folk don't want to deal with that kind of stuff, and they're willing to put up with being more crowded and having more taxes taken out than to have to deal with some of that nonsense. Well, I gotta have a backup generator in case my electricity goes out because my well won't pump if it doesn't have electricity, and I want to be able to flush my toilet, so I have to have a generator. I mean, it's just so having a city government, the city is going to be much more responsive to the needs of the people in it than a county government would. So when Earl was asking this guy, name the benefits of having a city, it's because James, of course, has only heard the drawbacks, because James is a sovereign citizen who also believes that government is terrible and evil and wants to get rid of it, a la his hero Gavin Syme. But the problem is that people want these things, like HOAs. I hate HOAs. But I understand HOAs. I understand why they're put into position, because the property owners got together and they decided, in order to protect the value of their properties, they would all pay a tax to the HOA. That's basically a tax. And in return for giving this association their money, the association would then in turn hire people to enforce the rules. And by doing that, the objective is to maintain higher property values and a nicer standard of living. You think a lot of it's bullshit. Well, yeah, but there's reasons for it. No car parked on the street. Well, that's bullshit. Why can't I park my car on the street? Because it leads to problems. It leads to parking issues. It leads to people putting cars that aren't running out there and just having them rot on the street, things like that. You have to maintain your lawn. Well, that's bullshit. Why do I have to maintain my lawn? Because disgusting houses tend to have disgusting people in them, and it ruins the property values for the people around you. It has an impact on them. Same thing with cities. And you know, cities can concentrate police protection. Cities tend to have higher crime rates than the country does. And to combat this, cities can take your tax money and they can use it to fund a police department. Now, I know a lot of people who watch me think that the police are just, oh my God, it's so terrible. Well, I'm sure you can't imagine a society without the police, but it looks like Somalia and stuff, where it's just warlords and no police. Things can get bad real quick. And James was sitting out there filming, and the protagonist, I don't know, anti-hero, whatever you want to call him, approached James, of course, and wanted to engage James in fisticuffs because he doesn't like James. Imagine that, a citizen not liking James. Of course, James instantly assumes the guy's paid by the cops. You got to be paid by the cops if you don't like James. Got to, because that's James logic for you. Everybody likes James except for the Mormon Church. Mormon Church doesn't really like James. Civil servants don't like James. Random people on the street don't appear to like James very much. But I guess we're all paid by the cops. Anyway, so the protagonist, or whatever, approaches James and says that his concern is that James is harassing the old ladies. And James is saying that they are just in there taking up taxpayer money. And that surprises me, because James has zero grasp of civics. He has no understanding what governments do or how they do it. And yet somehow magically he knows what job or jobs those old ladies have, what the tasks are involved, and how many people it is required to do those tasks. It's that general lack of understanding and research that is really James's fatal flaw. Well, among many. He has lots of opinions on things, but he has informed his opinion by watching Gavin Time and discussing things with people like Ethics Instead and other sovereign citizen retards. He doesn't actually understand how city governments work, what their roles are, what benefits they offer. And he also doesn't understand that just because something has benefits doesn't mean it can't also have disadvantages. There are certainly disadvantages to having a city government. It is an added expense. You can't get around that. City governments cost money. And you personally might not like the rules, but you know, there's a solution for that. There's a reason why people live 6 miles from anywhere, have to drive an hour and a half to go to a Quickie Mart. There's a reason for that, because they don't want the rules. They don't want to pay the city taxes, and good for them. Anyway, I guess that's my little morning ramble. There was some discussion in my Discord last night about sovereign citizens and who they are and what they do and why they believe what they believe. And one common thread in sovereign citizens is that they will always supply a one-line response from a court case, from an opinion. It'll almost invariably be one sentence long. maybe two, but it's typically not going to be a paragraph. So it's going to be completely devoid of context. And this one sentence is going to be laid out, maybe with a citation, maybe not, but it'll never be a complete citation. And by never, I mean, I can't recall having ever seen a complete citation. And by complete citation, I mean not just citing the volume of the series and the page number in the volume, or the page number at the start of the case in the volume, but the actual page number in the volume where the page is located. Like 517 US, which means it's in the US. It's going to be a Supreme Court decision. The US is a series. It's going to be volume 517 in that series. And then there'll be a page number. That's the start of the case, but that's not where the quote is coming from. So a full quote would be like 517 US 377, 382. That means that the case starts on 377, but the actual quote is taken from 382. And the reason why they don't do that is because they don't want it to be easy for you to look it up. But there is a quick and easy solution. Anytime a sovereign citizen gives you a quote that they think supports their point of view, number one, ask them for the page number. They also like to post a lot of decisions that were before 1900, back before, especially when you're dealing with driving. They like to post a lot of pre-rise of the automobile decisions. So ask them for the date on it, because like here's an actual kind of citation. It would be like People v. Downey, and then the date would be like 1994 in parentheses. So it'd be People v. Downey, 1994, 241 Cal 4th, 383, 389. That would be a full citation, because it tells you a lot of things. So ask them for the page number, ask them for the year it was published, and while they're doing that, just Google the citation that they gave you, and try to find it on an actual non-sovereign citizen website, on an actual like Court Listener or Justia or Oyez, or any one of the actual Legal Beagle, any one of the actual websites that publish opinions. Try to find it in one of them. And then you can just usually hit Control F if you're on Windows. I don't remember the keystroke command for searching text on a Mac. But you just find a bit of the sentence. And you'll find that about 90% of the time, that sentence doesn't appear in the decision that they're quoting. They're lying to you. And if it does appear, it's usually taken out of context. It's going to be dicta. It might be altered slightly to change the meaning. But yeah, you know your position is shit if you've got to make up quotes and lie to try to convince other people that you're not a retard. So that's really it. Thank you very much for watching, and have yourself a great day.